I would like to introduce everybody here and watching online to Louis D. Hall. How would you describe yourself, Louis? Is it author, is it writer, is it photographer? How would you like to be described?
Wow, I've never been asked that question. I suppose first and foremost, I'd say I run a charity called the Big Hoof. We create long distance journeys with horses around the UK for people suffering from mental health causes. And then everything I've done through horses has allowed me to write and take photos. But I think first and foremost comes
Big Hoof.
the Big Hoof, the horses, the people. Yeah.
So it's quite inspiring what you've done. So I'll read a little bit and then we'll find out a bit more about his journey. So after growing up in Scotland with no accent.
Angry Scot, yeah, sorry.
Went on a trip to northern Mongolia, age 18, in search of the Zatan tribe. Why?
I'd finished school and with university a year away, and then so I was on a year out. We'd worked in a farm, and then a friend of mine said, I'd read this book called The Horse Boy,
right,
which probably is quite familiar to many people, about an young American couple, true story, young American couple who have a child with severe Asperger's, and they don't really know what to do. They've tried everything, and they hear about this tribe in the north of Mongolia called the Zatan tribe, who are known for their kind of curative powers of healing, and they're a reindeer tribe, and they think, we'll go to this tribe and see if they can help our son.
Right.
And they go, and the son it's not a kind of miracle story, but at the same time, it's a story of them as a family coming together, the boy finding solace through these animals. And my friend showed me this book, and we were effectively thinking of what to do in our year out. And he said, let's go find this tribe, because we both loved animals and we thought it would be fun. So that was the reason we went to find them, yeah.
So you never made it to university?
I did make it to university.
You did?
What
did you study?
Philosophy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you embarked on a 1,147 mile ride down the length of the UK, which raised money for cystic fibrosis, and that laid the foundation for your charity.
Yes.
The Big Hoof. A Scottish mental health charity creates long distance rides, and I'm pleased to say, and I urge you all to buy and read In Green. Was this your first book?
I wrote a book when I was about 7,
oh, right.
which was
was published?
No, thank God. No. I think my granny very sweetly gave it to like a self-publisher, and the self-publisher said to my granny, "Your grandson needs help," because it was like a spy book. But when you're that age, you think, the spies. There's 2 spies. They wake up and they go do their spy mission. But first of all, they've got to have breakfast. So they got to have their scrambled eggs, and they've got to brush their teeth, and they've got to make their bed. Anyway, it was this ridiculous story about spies who never end up doing their actual spy job. But that was my first and only attempt before that, yeah.
Before that. And
before
then,
this, yeah.
Could you tell us the reason for this incredible journey? What made you inspired or sparked you to want to go on this amazing journey? 111 days across Europe, and of course you're here today as well to talk about your incredible horse, Sasha.
Yes.
Not here today, but happily in Scotland,
he is
chilling out for a while.
Yeah.
Some of the activities you get up to actually cause a bit of anxiety in me as a rider, and you took risks that I'm probably too not courageous enough, and they worked out for you a lot of the time. So can you tell us how you built this bond with this horse you didn't know at the start of this incredible journey, and how you've built a relationship?
Yes, about the bond, I mean...
Was it immediate?
No. I mean, I was working for this guy in Naples, near Naples, for 4 months, and basically for free. And the idea was that he'd lend me one of his geldings, his horses at the end of these 4 months, so I could do this trip that I'd planned. And got to the end of the 4 months, and he came around the corner with this. I mean, it was like a year old, this thing. And he basically just gave him free work off me for 4 months. So I got on a hire car, went north, and after asking lots of people, found this stud farm that breed endurance horses in the north.
Arabs?
Arabs, yeah. And this was how little I actually knew about long-distance journeying with horses. Endurance, I just thought meant, long distances, which obviously for people who know about endurance does not mean just long distances. It means like flat, pretty much flat long distances, not kind of mountainous over the Alps kind of thing, which I was hoping to do. Anyway, I got to this stud farm, and this woman had heard about what I wanted to do, because I contacted her, and there were 300 Arabs, all look almost identical. It was a kind of proper breeding thing. and she said, yeah, I've got this horse that might be suitable, and that's him there. And so I walked towards him and got on him, and there was this sandy arena, and he just couldn't go in a circle. And I thought, I don't know much, but that is not a good sign. And then she said, no, let's go out. So we went up a hill, and he absolutely bolted. And I thought, you know what, if he can't go in a circle, but if he can go in one direction very fast, that's probably as good as I need.
What was your riding experience before you met Sasha?
Before this, I'd worked for 4 years in the stables in Hyde Park, taking tourists in circles forever around Hyde Park. Right. And before that was, my ride down the UK with a Highland pony for charity.
But slightly different challenges and slightly different weather that you were experiencing on your journey. And what was some of the most arduous moments of your journey that you thought, what am I doing?
Yes, many moments where I thought, what the hell am I doing? But I think I started in end of March, and because my theory was I didn't want to get to Spain, if I'd got to Spain, when it was in boiling summer. So I wanted to start early enough to kind of be able to finish.
And how long did you think that journey would take?
Based on what the UK journey, I thought I'd be able to do about 18, 19 miles a day. So that was kind of what I was going for. And because I also had a trick up my sleeve, which is basically you walk most of the time, you don't ride. You can't take a horse 2,000 miles riding. It's impossible, one horse, unless you take kind of 2 years over it or something. So I wanted to leave enough time to kind of get to, before the height of summer. And so we left, we were in Tuscany in the end of March, went up Tuscany. It was actually really nice, lights of spring. And then got to the bottom of the Alps. And, I'd basically completely forgot that the Alps, you ski, people ski in summer, in spring. And it was the beginning of April, and it was just snowing, obviously. And so I thought, how the hell am I going to cross the Alps with, in the snow? And I made contact in the area with these two women who reached out to me after I'd reached out to them, as it were, who said, we have always wanted to create a conclusive horse trail across the Alps. It's never been done before. We've heard about what you want to do. Can you be our guinea pig if we can help you? I was,
right.
Absolutely, I'll be the guinea pig. And so me and Sasha stayed in their house, the bottom of the Alps, for 5 days, planning this route using partisan trails and local knowledge, their fathers and whatnot, and brothers and sisters, and an existing walking trail, put it all together. And then Sasha and I, set off. But it was definitely the most difficult thing I've ever done, even since then. And with a horse that I barely knew. After that time I met him at the stud farm, we left 5 days later, and so we were just getting to know each other. And in the Alps, we're just so remote, and.
How was your phone working at all?
Yeah. So I had not internet, no, but I had an app which didn't require internet. So when we were making that route, we made it onto a map and we put that information onto an app.
Right.
And so I was just following that through sometimes through snow like this, but I just kept on following this thing, which is quite, ridiculous situation when you're just kind of you're putting all your hopes on this thing but it worked. I mean, it was 21 days across the Alps, and we ended up creating the first conclusive horse trail across the Ligurian Alps in history, and that was what these two women had wanted to do. So
you've managed to do the work for them. Are they using that
trail
now?
Absolutely,
You're a trailblazer, literally.
No. But they're now working with the Italian government to make it into a national thing. But that was all through them, basically, and Sasha and I were literally just following them. But in the Alps, I didn't expect to have to use a handsaw every day, because these paths had been kind of neglected because of COVID, and there were landslides, there were wolves. I hadn't thought about wolves. In the night I'd be camping with Sasha, or he'd be in the stable, and one particular night when we were camping, I kept on hearing barking and noises, and I thought that was just wild boars and whatever. And in the morning, it was just these paw prints just around us. And I was quite early on. I kind of realised these wolves are not a joke. Not that they were to go for me and Sasha together, but a horse on its own.
They would go for.
Quite tasty.
Is that something that has happened out there before?
Yes, more recently, wolves are on the rise in Europe generally, in these mountainous areas, north of Portugal, the Iberian Peninsula, and the Alps. They're increasing in numbers, which is good, but it creates massive issues for obviously farmers and stuff. But so that was the thing that people were very conscious about. No tourist would have told me that. However, the Ligurians were saying just wolves are not a joke.
And what I've also learned in your book is how much support there was.
Yeah.
I mean, to most of us horse owners, the thought of going anywhere without bales of hay, first aid kits, and you were on your own with a backpack. And you had people helping you plan to get to certain areas, to stay overnight or certain days, have a rest day. How often did you have a rest day?
Well, I worked out again, this was, a lot of it was the kind of blueprint for this was the journey down the UK, which is a lot of a more safe environment than the Ligurian Alps or the Pyrenees or whatever. And I worked out there that once a week is a pretty good way to go. If you're walking a lot, if you're riding a lot, then you need to be doing it once every 3 days or 4 days, I'd say. But I was walking, 70% of the time. So that worked out really well. And in terms of help, when I got to the Alps, obviously feed is a massive problem with the snow. So I was with these two women wondering what we can do. And yes, you can rely on the villages that we meet, but what if you don't get there? What if there's a snowstorm? So I called up my younger sister, who was at university, and she just finished. She was on a summer break, and she just passed her driving license. And I called her up and said, "Do you want to drive out to meet me and help me do this project?" She said, "Absolutely not. It's a ridiculous idea." Then I said, she was at Falmouth Art School. I said, "Well, it'd be a really cool, art project." She's like, "No, it wouldn't. Why would I want to follow my brother with the horse?" So, but then she eventually said, "Okay, I'll bring a friend. We can make a little adventure out of it."
Yeah.
So they got in this car and they basically met us, and they dropped this really high intensity feed at kind of 8 different points across the Alps, in the hope that I'd reach them, and that was on our kind of route. And it did work out like that. I did reach them. But as it was down the UK, and as it is how I do it with the Big Hoof, the support of strangers is something that I seek out. It's not something I kind of. For me, it's not a bad thing. It's like it's why I think horses and humans, we have been intertwined for 5,500 years. We have our shared history is like this, and I think to be self-sufficient with horses is a big mistake, because you're missing that wonderful human connection you get. So I did seek out strangers a lot for their help, and that's how you can start understanding a culture. That's how you can start hearing stories and being able to kind of write about that.
I've taken some points I've heard you speak and read the book, not finished yet, nearly. But I thought these were really interesting points. Looking lost is the best way to make friends. Yeah. Have you got an example of how you've done that?
Well, I mean, I've now technically got friends across Europe. Not that they would probably call me a friend, but I would call them a friend. Looking lost, yes. I mean, and there's so many occasions when you arrive with a horse in a village, which obviously is kind of a daily occurrence in this situation. You don't speak the language, because I'm not a linguist, but I try. However, if you come in as a person with a bicycle or the person on your own, they see you as a person, and they kind of try and put you in a country or a place or a time or an age group or a social situation. If you come in with an animal like a horse, they don't see you as a person, they see a horse with a person. And so the horse comes...
That's the focal point.
That's the focal point, as it is with most people around the world. So they're immediately they're thinking, that horse needs grass, that horse needs shelter, water, whatever. And then after they've done that, they kind of look at you and think, oh, you probably need something as well. Yeah. But by that point, the horse has done so much of the talking for you that, you do look like a little lost child or boy or man or whatever. But you then are invited into that situation. So having an animal does make you look
paves
a
the way
paves
for
the way,
you to conversations.
Massively. And it doesn't, same as it was in Mongolia, language was not the kind of currency, it was
the animal.
It was the animal, yeah.
So we find with Street Vet as well, so Street Vet is a charity that helps homeless or those people that are temporarily without a home with a dog, generally a dog. They've got cats and a couple of rabbits, I think, on the street. And I'm guilty of it in the past, of having walked past somebody who doesn't have a dog there. If they've got a dog, you've got an immediate reason to be able to talk to somebody, have a chat, and otherwise you might feel awkward about speaking to somebody who's homeless. But when you've got a dog there, you can go up and it links you immediately.
100%.
And so I totally understand that the animal is a way into a conversation with a human.
Definitely.
And I think we all need to use that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of the fundamental things that stood out for me on the ride down the UK. This was in a break during COVID when me and you were strangers. We were all danger to each other. Everyone was just terrified of speaking to people. And then when I was going down the UK, I remember the scene where it was a Highland Connemara pony, not very big, which had a lovely big neck. And I just saw sort of 5 different hands, touching her neck. And these were strangers on the street, neighbours on the street who hadn't spoken to each other for a year and a bit. And then they all started speaking. And I just thought, in that moment, it's like this animal is a magnet. It's a catalyst and a magnet at the same time.
I think you're absolutely right, because I think people might have been slightly ashamed before COVID of saying my best friend is my dog or my best friend is my horse. And now it's quite normal to be able to say that dog or that horse got me through a really difficult time.
Absolutely.
And without them, I don't know what situation I'd be in. So some of the other things you said that I really relate to is bonding, walking through eye to eye. So you didn't get to ride all the time, as you said. It's not healthy, but also Sasha had a back injury on the withers, didn't he? So you walked, and you were walking eye to eye. I had an operation. I was rehabilitating with my horse, so I did a lot of walking with him. I can't tell people how important that was to our relationship, that we were just walking. I was chatting to him eye to eye, and sometimes I think people think having a horse and so on is about riding. But it's so much more.
Yeah, so much more. And as you say, you get so much more out of it. Luckily, his injury wasn't devastating. It was just basically a swelling, a bad saddle, which I got rid of, and then I was just saddleless and walking across the Alps. But it was because it was the most difficult part of the journey. It was also good that we were eye to eye. So we were just sort of getting to know each other and at that level. And after that, we were, and since then, we've obviously, our relationship was very, very, very unified. But it was because of that eye to eye. And even now, if I'm, at home, I go with a walk with the dogs, but then I'll take Sasha with a lead as well, and we just walk together because it's just a nice thing to do,
It is, it's beautiful. And I never thought my greatest companion in the world would be an Arabian horse.
Yeah, my now wife would probably think differently. I wasn't married then, so.
I'll take that out. Edit.
Yeah, exactly.
And another one was living one existence and taking on another. So you were basically responsible for this horse, and later on Kiki and Istia, weren't you? So taking on more responsibility at some point must have felt a little bit, or do I need to take on more responsibility on this journey?
Well, I think a lot of the reason the book or the journey was based out of this book called "As I Walked Out One Midsummer Morning" by Laurie Lee, and in it he kind of says, I'm from a situation in life where I'm not being purged, I've got no persecution, I've got an okay family situation, my country's not at war, I have no story, and I want to create a story. And he was similar age when he did his journey, and to me at the time. And I want to just find something in myself that I can define or have meaning, find meaning in something. And for me, I think having the responsibility of this animal that I put up on myself, and then having the responsibility of this young woman I meet in the Alps who's just lost her sister and meets me with her horse, that I kind of brought that on myself, but at the same time, I kind of needed that to help me find some definition in life and purpose. And then it's in a way, it's kind of has shaped my life since.
What direction did you think you would take before doing this?
Yeah, I mean, I was an actor in London, and it wasn't going badly, and I was, I think it could have been a different story. Not that I would have been anything successful, but more the fact that I was just hungry for work, and I was just on this kind of ladder, and I think I cohave seen myself continuing that ladder, hoping for the kind of carrot at the end, but maybe it never would have happened. But I'm just glad it went completely like that, because I wouldn't have met my wife, I wouldn't have met Sasha, I wouldn't have found the Big Hoof, set up the Big Hoof,
What would you do differently now, having done that amazing trip? What did you learn in that you think, I would have changed how I dealt with that, or what situation I was in? Is there anything that stands out for you?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, there's a lot of risks that I took, which would probably now I would have thought about more, as opposed to kind of immediately reacting. I would have thought perhaps. However, I think one of the biggest driving forces behind the journey was this concept of a destination, and this concept of, which was Cape Finisterre, this place at the Atlantic Ocean. And as long as I reached that point, everything was going to be okay. And it was just this kind of massive adrenaline rush every day to keep going for the sake of getting there. And I think it probably comes with a bit of growing up a little bit as well, that I think I was also missing out on so much of these, such a cliche, but these sort of moments in between that were happening all around me. And I would have done this twice as slow if I was going to do it again.
Right.
And I would have probably done it with no technology as well, because it's so possible to do. I mean, you just basically ask someone for the directions to the next village, but without using the road, and they're like, yeah, well, let's go that way. But instead, I was just kind of, I know the way using this app. So I think I would have slowed everything down, not maybe had a fixed destination, just allowed things to happen, and enjoyed the incredible beauty of the landscape and the extraordinary people that I was lucky to meet. Because there is a type of person that is it's almost like I wouldn't say it's sort of dying out, but there's a person with great spirit that allows a stranger with a horse into their life, and then takes their responsibility to to be so hospitable. and to not really appreciate the value of that human connection in that moment it doesn't happen every day. Do you know what I mean? And I think in retrospect, I'd be kind of spend more time in awe, you know, and just be still and just appreciate it more.
Be in the moment.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me yesterday, would I enjoy the book if I'm not horsey? I said, you absolutely would enjoy the book if you're not horsey. If you're horsey, you enjoy it more. But you can relate to some of the challenges that you went through. So tell us about what you've got planned next.
I've just finished a journey with 2 mules across the north of Portugal. It was meant to be down the whole of Portugal, but as if anyone knows mules,
I don't, and this was really interesting. You telling us about their relationship with humans isn't quite as it would be with a horse. That they're not as affectionate straight away to humans.
Yeah, or not in our terms of affectionate.
No.
I think, you know, horses we've bred to be submissive. We've sort of engineered them to be submissive. We've done a very good job at doing it. That's not what they were, you know, 5,500 years ago. However, with mules, we've never bred them to be submissive. We've bred them to work. And so this kind of idea of being affectionate with humans has never really been part of their remit. And I wanted a challenge. I wanted something that was, you know, harder than a horse. And the mules, I was only meant to have 1 mule, and then the guy was like, they're sisters. I was like, all right, fine. And then my wife was like, you can't separate. And obviously I was the sucker in this situation. And my wife was like, you can't separate sisters. So they weren't expensive, but she bought the other mule. And I was like, wait, so I have to take the 2 mules now? She's like, yeah, come on, they're sisters. And so they're big, like, you know.
How big in hands? To us?
They're 15 hands.
Okay,
yeah.
but strong.
They're so strong. Like, they're so strong. And
stubborn?
Is an understatement. However, I think it was a great challenge because a lot of this was about destination, about having physicality being the dominant force, you know, and actually the hardest thing I had to do on this mule journey was just letting go, not knowing where I was going to be that night.
Right.
And there was I had no technology at all, no phone, no nothing. So it was about really, you know, asking the Portuguese where I was going to sleep, where I'm going to get to, and also allowing the mules to dictate the path. You know, I just had to give up the idea that I was in charge. And I was just at the mercy of these 2 mules.
And where are these mules? They're not at home with you?
No, they're not. They would hate Scotland. They're in the Douro now. They are working in a port farm with other mules, so they're doing what they should be doing, basically.
Is the relationship you have with Sasha one of the strongest you've had throughout your life with any animal, with a dog or a horse? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think anything could compare to. I mean, because also that age, as everyone will know, you know, between the age of 21 to 26, you're such a confused, trying to find yourself, you know, hormones, everything. It's such a changing period. And he was kind of, I suppose in relative senses, a similar age. I mean, when we did the rides, he was 8, 9, which is, you know,
relative to your age.
Yeah, it kind of is relative. And certainly his first experience outside of home. You know, he'd been brought up in the Apennine Mountains amongst other, you know, more dominant Arabs and was sort of coasting. And then when he met me, we were kind of both of us in a quite similar mindset, I think. And the fact that I did manage eventually, spoiler alert, but I did manage eventually by a long process, to bring him back to Scotland. And he's now the kind of main horse that we use for the Big Hoof. And he's, you know, the first summer he came back to Scotland, he went the whole way across Scotland from St Andrews to Iona for a 2-week trek for a charity. And I would never have a horse like him. You know, I'd love to have that relationship. It's one of those times in your life you're lucky to meet an animal like that. Yeah.
So tell us what you've got for the rest of the year coming up.
Yeah, so for the Big Hoof wise, we've just done a journey across the Lake District, and which we were raising money. So the Big Hoof is a charity that I run with my wife, and we basically do long distance journeys, or rather walks with horses. Sasha is, you know, the main horse, and then other people can bring their horses, but most people bring their dogs, or one guy's brought his parrot recently, called Buster, and we choose a nice route, which is, you know, between 3 days and 2 weeks, and it's usually historic. Maybe it's a pilgrimage route or an ancient path or whatever. As a Lake District, or we do Highlands usually, or, you know, and then we choose a charity that's really effective in that area to raise money for. So all the strangers that come, so there's a group of usually between 10 and 15. Some people might know each other from before, some people from other rides that we do, or others just come along because they've heard about us through the radio, social media, whatever. We all group together in the sense that we have to raise money for this one charity, and and we're united by the fact that, you know, rule number one, the horses are the most important things on this trip, and our own kind of lives or egos have to put aside a bit, and this is just what we're kind of doing. And so in the Lake District, we just raised money for Growing Well, which is a wonderful charity that helps with people out of work and with mental health issues into gardening.
Right.
And our next journey will be in November. And I think it's going to be for the RDA actually, because we haven't actually done a journey for the RDA yet. And we do lots of them for mental health causes, but I think the RDA are in need of some, in our area, in Fife, are in need of some support and some publicity, good publicity. And so, but yeah, we're always on the lookout for new, lovely routes, and really important, impactful charities are the most important thing,
Sadly, we're running out of time because I think we could talk for ages, but you would advise people to come to the Big Hoof. Are you Instagram, Facebook? Where are you?
The Big Hoof, thebigHoof.com has Instagram, Facebook, whatnot, and then I've just got a website, louisdhall.com. And but the Big Hoof, if you want to join a journey, and they are open to everyone. Our youngest participant is 7, the oldest was 70 this year. You do not need to know how to ride at all. That's absolutely not a prerequisite. It's just walking with horses, and welcome to jump on. If not, you're just doing what you want to do. And the Big Hoof, and that's next. We usually do about 2 journeys a year with a fun London Cuban night, and because I love Cuban music, and which is a fundraiser, and an annual Burns night in London as well.
Okay.
But it's 2 rides a year, 2 journeys a year rather, and that's thebighoof.com or social media.
Amazing. So Louis is signing books today, so please go and purchase one and have a chat. And thank you so much for your time and talking about Sasha, and we really appreciate it, and coming all the way to Red Wings today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, you've got to sign my book.
To Tammy?
Sign my book to Tammy.
To Tammy, okay.
Fangirling now. Thank you.
No, not at all.